Can you hear me now? Ah.
Hey, Jan.
I wanted to turn on my audio. I didn't want to send it. That's why I didn't click.
Oh, I'm trying to figure out as well. So.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Months we've been using hundreds of tools with hundreds of different icons. So
tell me about that.
Yet another one. I hope everybody can hear me and see me. That's great. VJ is here as well. I think we are already 1 minute late, so I think we should start. But I cannot hear VJ. No, VJ, we cannot hear you. VJ, I think you need to turn on send audio. That is the microphone button on the right underneath your name. Can you try that? Let's wait another minute until we can hear VJ. Okay.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, great.
Yeah. Okay. It took a couple times for it to act normally.
So, good. Before we start, I have to send out a warning. There have been emails going on the chair's mailing list. I think that the Meet Echo will finish sharply on time. Apparently there is no buffer. So at the end of our session, whoever is going to talk, Meet Echo is going to cut you off, or maybe me, myself, whatever. So whenever our 100 minutes are gone, we're going to be cut off, just so that everyone is aware. Ah, okay. I just, thanks to Bia, I just was reiterating what I heard, what I read on the mailing list. If it's not the case, even better. So Vijay, are we going to start?
I think so. We have the note takers. Thanks, Sabine and Chow. And I think we need a Jabber scribe. But if Jabber is tied in to Meet Echo, I can monitor the Meet Echo chat.
Yeah, I never understand why we still need Jabber scribes since we use Meet Echo, which has a chat feature, right?
Right.
But apparently for backwards compatibility, we still use it. You can do it, Vijay?
Yeah, I can monitor the Meet Echo chat, but if anybody wants to run a Jabber client, please do. The Meet Echo chat is Jabber. Perfect. Then I'll monitor that.
So yeah, then we're good to go. We got 2 note takers. I think it's Sabine and let me check my email. Who's the second note taker? Well, we got him, that's for sure.
Oh, that's Xiao. Yeah.
Ah, all right.
Xiao.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, welcome to the Alto session in this online IETF meeting. I guess it's a new experience for everyone. And
Jan, you want to share your slides? Or you want me to share them on my end?
If you can do that, that would be perfect.
Sure. Go ahead. I'll share them.
Right. So welcome, everyone. I think this is new for us. We've done lots of virtual interim meetings, actually, but those were always with WebEx. So this is Meet Echo now. It seems to work. I see lots of people in the chat, so it seems to work. I guess people can hear me. Vijay is going to put up the slides we have. But while he's doing that, I think everybody who's been following the mailing list, it should be very obvious what we're going to do today. We want to finish the 4 remaining documents. One of them has already passed working group last call. One isn't working group last call. And
can you see the slides?
I cannot, fortunately.
Can anybody see the slides?
Yeah.
Okay. What do I need to do to see the slides? Show gallery view? No.
I see VG screen, but it's not for screen. It's like I can see it though.
Slides.
Sebastian here. Oh.
Well, if
So-
everybody can see it, it works for me. I just see the Meet Echo logo in the back.
That's funny. So what if you want to run it locally and just go say the slide number? I can keep on advancing.
I can do that, but if anybody can tell me what I need to click so I also see the slides, that's fine. But yeah, I can open the slides locally.
You might have to mouse over the center of the screen. There's like a pause button that you might have hit kind of in the upper left of the center window. That could be your issue.
And upper left of the center window.
So there's a center frame that typically has the slides, or in your case, the Meet Echo logo. And in the upper left, there's like a pause. Well, for me, there's a pause button. Or the play button. There's a play button in the upper left of the.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't see it.
Okay. You might have to go log in and out again then, potentially.
Yeah, let me just open the slides locally. That's fine. If everybody can see them, that's fine. Just give me a second. Yeah, all right. So first slide, I guess, is obvious. This is the Alto working group. This is IETF108. I'm Jan Seedorf. I'm co-chairing this working group, and Vijay Gopani is also here. He's also co-chairing this working group. So we can go to the next slide. The note, well, I think I know most of you in the chat here, so all of you are more or less veterans, so you should know this. And there are certain rules that apply in the IETF. So everything we do here is I guess, public domain, essentially. So everything is open to the public and very transparent. If you know about any IPR, you're supposed to mention it. Yeah, check these rules in detail if you want to. There are certain RFCs listed here if you want to read this in detail, but we assume that everyone is aware of these rules that certainly apply to this session. So I'm now on slide number 3, the status of the working group. Well, I said this already. We want to finalize the charter items, and we think we're there. So Vijay, myself, and also Martin, our area director, had some email exchanges, and we think we can move all the remaining documents to working group last call. We've already started with one of them, with the Unified Properties document. I issued a working group last call. Let's wait for the presentations today, but I think after this meeting is over, we can also issue further working group calls for the remaining documents. So we are very positive about that. The other main item we are working on this working group is then a recharter discussion, because the working group items that I mentioned before, the remaining ones are the final ones under our current charter. So a while ago, I discussed with Vijay and Martin, and I issued actually a mail on the mailing list that if we want to continue this working group, we need to recharter, and we solicited contributions for this recharter discussions. And the idea was that we're going to have several one-slider presentations, and Rich is going to present this today, so I don't want to say much about this. What I'm going to say is that I was actually very happy about the energy that I saw on the mailing list. I have been certainly one that maybe a while ago was skeptical if we have enough energy for recharting the working group, but I've changed my mind on that. So we have weekly meetings now. We see a lot of people working on new topics. So I think the energy is clearly there. Let's see the discussion today, how it goes, and what I mean for recharter. Energy is one requirement. There are certainly others. We need a clear scope and certain work items that we want to work on. But I just wanted to say that I think there has been a lot of effort put in by certain people into this rechartering effort, and I'm happy to see that. But we can discuss further.
Just one point.
Yeah, Vijay, go ahead.
Richard, the one sliders, I don't see them in your recharter deck. Is there a separate deck that needs to be uploaded?
Oh, so Vijay, do you want me to upload them to? Oh, actually, they're in my local machine. There are like 16 of them, so I did not upload. Should I do that?
Yeah, if you could upload them, then that way we don't have to upload each slide and waste time. If you could put all slides together and upload them into one PDF, then I can just display that when we're ready.
Okay, then let me try it. Okay, yeah, I'll do it right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess we can go to slide number 4, which is the agenda, which is, according to what I just said, very straightforward. So we have 4 presentations on the remaining milestones that we have. Again, 2 of CDNI has already passed working class call. Unified properties is in working class call. So I think for performance metrics and path vector, we can move these to working class call pretty soon as well. Let's see. And then we have roughly an hour for the recharter discussion. We talked about this already. Richard's going to present 1 sliders on different aspects regarding the recharter discussion and different technical issues. And after this presentation, which is a kind of a unified presentation from different contributors, we're going to have a discussion. So let's move on to slide number 5. Which essentially is, I've said all this already. The last meeting was a virtual one in IETF107. We have not moved any document out of the working group since then, but we've made good progress on the remaining milestones, in particular the 3 ones at the bottom here. So cost still in RC edit queue was the same status at IETF107. I have not been following the details there, but I assume they're making progress and they will soon be issued as RFCs. CDNI is already past working class call. We're just waiting on this document because there's some dependencies with the other 3 remaining docs. And yeah, the other ones we think are ready for working class call, but we're going to have presentations on them today, so I'm not going to talk much more.
Also, I believe that
yeah.
some of the path vector depends on unified properties. So as soon as unified properties goes ahead, we can start working call for the others. Jan and I and Martin had a quick discussion on whether we want to do a working group last call for all of them or each one serially. And at least we decided that let's start off unified properties since other drafts depend on it. So as soon as that working group last call is done, our expectation is that we would probably start path vector and performance metrics right away.
Right. Good. Thank you, Vijay, for this. I was actually, I was skipping some details here. You're very, very right about this. In fact, in my view, all of these 4 remaining documents probably essentially might be published all together in the end because we have some dependencies. I'm not sure about performance metrics, but at least CDNI, path vector, and unified properties, yeah, they depend on each other or depend on unified properties. So we just want to make a sequence out of working class calls, but essentially they might be published all together at once.
Right.
Yes. Well, that's my view, I guess. Yeah, so Vijay, you added another slide. I'm now on the slide number 6. That's not the last slide. You want to finish off this slide deck because I think I don't have the latest version here locally.
Okay.
I have to download it.
So I think everybody kind of knows that the bulk of this meeting would be dedicated to recharter discussion. And for those of you that are aware and have been part of this, RFC 2418 guides us on the relevant things that we should keep in mind when we are rechartering or chartering a new piece of work. There's a bunch of issues listed there that are of import. The 3 that I mentioned here are the issues the recharter will address clear and relevant to the internet community, are the goals specific and reasonably achievable, and achievable within a reasonable time frame, and is there enough expertise within the IETF in the working group's topic, and are those people interested in contributing? Those are the 3 main things that we should keep in mind as we think about the recharter discussion. Our expectation is that we are starting off this recharter discussion. I suspect we won't reach any consensus, at least today, on whether to recharter or not, but I think starting this off is a good thing to do. And as Jan said, given the energy, things are looking in the right direction. So let's see how far we go. If there's no agenda bash, then we can continue to the first talk. Jan?
Right. I think we're done. So I certainly have said anything I wanted to say. Yeah, I think we can start with the first presentation. According to agenda, it is the unified properties presentation from Sabine.
All right.
Vijay, can you share the slides?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, great. Sabine, are you there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, hello everybody. So this is the presentation on the latest iteration of unified property, which is, by the way, version 12 and not 11. So I won't go over the general ideas on this draft. People can just read the slides. The slide number 2. So slide number 3, please. So can we go to slide number 3?
I am projecting slide 3.
Okay. Okay, because I did not. Oh, sorry. Okay. I just have a slight problem on my screen is blinking. I need to close something down. Okay, so to start with, so there have been substantial updates on this draft. Large updates on the text and reorganization of the document, and also design updates, which does not actually question the further design. We just introduced rather a definition. So we defined something called defining information resource. I will go back to this later. And then clarification, table of contents updates. And the status right now is that it is in working group last call until August 7th. So next slide, please. Okay, so the defining information resource, we have introduced this concept for several purposes. So we needed this concept especially when we were defining resource-dependent entity domains and resource-dependent property values. So we needed to specify from which information resource the entities that are defined and accessible. So this is very useful, of course, for entity domain types that are by essence domain specific, which is the case for PID and ANE that we will see with the path vector. And this feature actually allows to expose property maps for ANEs, which was not defined in the previous versions of path vector, which was only considering like ephemeral ANEs, whereas we think we do need some information on ANEs that can be that have a persistent existence and definition. So this is also useful for resource-specific entity domains constructed from resource-agnostic domain types. A resource-agnostic domain types is typically IPv4, IPv6, but sometimes you want to define an entity domain of local addresses. So then, of course, you make it resource-specific, and then again, you need to specify this defining information resource. And last but not least, this is very useful for Alto clients because Alto clients in the IRD, they see that the property map exposes mappings between entity domains and property, which means you can query property 1, 2, 3 on entity domain 1, 2, 3, but the Alto client has no way to verify whether the Alto server would expose correct or incorrect mapping. So this is also an important motivation to introduce this. So next slide, please. So I will not say all the text, but this is here for documentation if people want to look at the slides later on. So in Section 4.6, this is a new section that defines what is the characteristic of an information domain. So it must have an entry in the IRD. It defines the entity of this entity domain. It does not use another information resource that defines this entity. For example, in a path vector, you may say, okay, this INE appears first in a cost map. So the defining resource would be a cost map, or if you expose a cost map between two PIDs, for example. But the cost map will never tell you what is in this PID, what is contained in this PID. The PID is defined in the network map. So this is the meaning of this point. The defining resources must define and expose entity identifier that are all persistent. That's for the ANEs, and its media type is unique. And the media type of the defining resource must be specified in the document that do introduce these entity domain types. So, for example, for PID, the defining resource will be media type of the defining resource will be network map. For local IPv4 and IPv6, again, it will be a network map. And for an ANE, the defining resource will be a property map, provided these ANEs have a persistent identifier. So when the Alto client wants to check the correctness of the mappings exposed in the IRD, it needs to check whether the media type is correct. So next slide, please. So there is a similar exercise to be done with the property values. So what is resource specific here is not the property type, but the property values. So again, it is useful for the client to check if the mapping is correct. And so we added a new section on that topic on defining information resource for resource-specific property values. We provided a couple of examples. And by the way, the example of CDNI will be corrected. There is an error in the text. Next slide, please. So then, besides this
there's somebody in the queue. Can we see if they're? Go ahead.
Sorry?
There's somebody in the queue. Aizu, go ahead.
Okay.
Aizu, do you have a question? Guess not. Carry on.
Okay, so besides this topic of defining information resource, we also did substantial text updates to really, well, we had to update the text with respect to some other initial design considerations.
Sabine,
yes.
I'm sorry, from the 10-minute slot, you have 1 minute left, so you might want to see if there's any questions or wrap it up or so.
Okay, so, well, if you want to take a look at the text update, you can look up the slides. And so, I mean, that's just a rough listing. As a conclusion, this working in slide 8, you have an example of the new property map for ANEs. In slide 9, well, some additional text update list. And I just wanted to say, so this is in working group last call. And do not hesitate to send any feedback, especially regarding text clarification, because everybody knows after having edited the text for a long time, some things that are clear for us are not clear for the readers. Thank you. Any questions?
Okay, seems to be no questions, right?
Any questions? I think this draft is fairly well baked, so if there's no questions, let's move on to the next one.
Right, but let's reiterate Sabine's request. If you want to have it, if you take your time and read the document, if something is not clear, please send a mail to the authors. That would be great.
Yes, and especially here, if I may add something, it's because, as you heard, a lot path vector and CDNI depend on this draft. So this draft really needs to be clear for everybody. So
yes, correct. Okay. Thanks, Sabine. So I guess the next presentation is performance metrics. Richard.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Great. Sorry, I was working on the slides and I have all these 16 one-pagers, so kind of muted. Okay. I don't see slides, so can someone, Vijay, maybe can you share my slides?
I'm sharing them. Can other people see it?
Unfortunately, no. I don't.
Can anybody hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
I can hear you.
For those, if somebody can see it, see at least one person responding on the Jabber list that they can see it.
Yeah,
I can see them.
I can also see it, but what worked for me is logging off and on again, because I had the same problem. It just takes 20 seconds. You want to try it, Richard?
So
Or Richard, if you have them locally, you can display for yourself and just tell me when to move next.
Oh, okay. So maybe that's easier. Okay, so 1 second and okay. And, okay. Okay, so and let's start with the first slide. And please go to the second slide, please. So basically, we have the revision from version 10 to version 12, which is the current version, is to address discussions and comments and reviews at an interim meeting in April 2020. And of course, there are also a bunch of issues raised during the weekly meetings, and mostly just address those issues. And those issues essentially can be, of course, there's also the review from Martin and so on. So we're trying to address all those issues. At high level, the issues are essentially 4, and how to choose types of metrics. Number 2, and what's a strategy to conform to RFC 6390, and how much detail to specify. And number 3, how to handle different statistics of same metric. We discussed about that last time, and there's all these essential meeting minutes. And then number 4, and multiple people raise the issue, how to convey freshness of metric values. So basically, revision is essential to clarify as much as possible about these 4 issues. Slide number 3, please. So for people who are new and who are wondering what exactly is going on with the performance metrics document, basically is we're trying to define performance metrics and from network to applications. And a very key decision, work group decision is Alto provides guidance and not measurement framework. There are very serious measurement framework efforts here at IETF. And so therefore we're guidance, we're not measurement framework, and we want to clarify. And number 2 is we want to clarify is there can be multiple types of guidance, and currently the working group has chosen 4 types. If you look at the example over here, you might have the SLA, which is one type of guidance. You have measurement, for example, might be one type of measurement guidance. And if you look at the upper right corner, we want to be able to use, for example, data from routing protocol 8571. That's a type of guidance as well. So therefore, how to choose a type of guidance. Next slide, please. So basically, eventually we chose 4, and the major decision was, okay, and among the 4 types of guidance, and how do you really choose which one? So therefore, eventual decision was to revise the text as much as possible to make it as clear as possible. For example, here is an example, and also probably the more important part about clarification of clarify how people choose which type of guidance your metric really is. So here, of course, we have estimation category. By the way, this is just copy paste from the exact text, so people know what exactly we're writing. So estimation, of course, is computed through an estimation process. It's generic, and we give all kinds of examples. And the discussion, I think, also from the weekly meeting, from feedback isn't it true that import is one type of estimation? You just import and do a very minor, essentially processing, and essentially consider as import. And how to do that? So therefore, we clarify a particular type of estimation is direct import, which indicates that value of the metric is imported directly from specific routing system and so on. So therefore, we essentially clarify this one. And then of course, there might be still would be discussions and about which one and what if do I really, given that you have subset and superset relationship, and what if they overlap? So eventually we make a decision that the third paragraph, there can be overlap in deciding the cost source category and operator of Alto server who chooses the category. And of course, we also want to be backward compatible. And what if a user doesn't really include it? And so therefore, we see if a metric does not include a such essential indicator, an application must assume essential is estimation, which is the most generic one. Okay, and next slide, please. Number 5, please. So that addresses issue number 1. And then we also very carefully went over the document to address question number 2, which is conformation to RFC 6390. For people who are not familiar with it, it's a guidance about how to define network performance metrics. And in particular, and even from this page, of course, it's also cut paste from section 2 of the current our document. And it requires that every single metric which you define in networking, you must include all these entries: metric name, description, method of measurement or calculation, unit of measurement, and measurement points, and measurement timing, and so on. So basically, what we decide is for every single metric we clarify that we are going to make it very clear that each one should include metric name, if you read the document, and metric description, and units of measurement. And measurement ports are, of course, always specific to the service. For example, endpoint service is between 2 endpoints, and network cost map essentially is between 2 aggregation points. But on the other hand, to be able to use coarse grain information, for example, routing system, for example, IGP and BGPLS, which do not provide fine grain information such as method of measurement or calculation and timing and so on. Oftentimes, you may not have those information. We still want the ability to use Alto to give. For example, people are still using routing protocol to choose a route and use those metrics. So therefore, basically, is for those, we do not really ask to follow this RFC 6390. So therefore, we essentially said for these cases, and it's essentially is recommended that the metric, the essential Alto server should give a link about where information is, but do not need to include it. So therefore, we're conforming at the same time. We're not fully conforming because we want to be slightly more flexible. And slide number 6.
Richard, you have 1 minute left from the 8 minutes.
Okay. Oh, I'm almost done. So, okay. And number 6 is relatively easy. And the question discussion was, I think this how to handle the statistic of the metric, and also related with Martin's comment that we might want to use as stable as possible performance metrics and so on. And eventually, the update document is we clarify essentially this really is observations, and people might want to use aggregate statistics whenever possible. And therefore, we clarify this. And we also give a reference using Prometheus, which is very popular. And then also the suggestion was, please make it complete, and therefore we compare with Prometheus, and we want essentially to make it as complete as possible. So therefore we added as standard deviation and SDDVR. And of course, one major difference, and it's not very minor, and Prometheus using quantile, and we still decide to keep our percentile, because quantile like 0.99 quantile, and we feel that's easier to read like 99% or 99.99% instead of 0.9999. So we decided to keep percentile, but otherwise we are very similar. Okay, and last issue we addressed, we clarify a little bit, and that's essentially we changed the wording a little bit. I think the discussion working group during internal meeting is we are not going to add new metrics into essentially about the timing. And we decide, I think work group meeting last meeting was to indicate the freshness of the information is Alto server should return HTTP last modified to indicate the freshness of the info. We did that, and we also clarified for SSE, and essentially the timing last modified should be time where you receive the data. And of course, SSE is really in the RFC queue, editor queue for a while, so therefore we give a hint to the editor to fix it. And that's pretty much it. So now number 8. We're pretty happy about the document. And we might need to do some very minor edits, for example, fix a few content lengths in examples, but I don't believe that would be really an issue. Oftentimes, my experience is that that's oftentimes we can do when we work with our editor to fix these type of small issues, and they're happy with that. So that's the only thing which I see, but now I'm happy to see if any additional suggestions or comments. Okay. Yeah. Do I get a question?
Any questions? If the edits are minor, Richard, as in putting content length, then perhaps you do so, and then we can last call it as, as we get closer to unified properties.
Okay, I can do that. I can do that. So, and I don't believe I can upload it this week, but I can upload as soon as it's allowed. Oh, I can upload already, right? Monday.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay, yeah, I can do that.
All right, then, if no other questions, then we have 5 minutes left for CDNI. Thank you, Richard.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Hello, can I hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, Jensen.
Okay, thank you. So I think the CDI update should be very quick. Can I go to the next slide? Yeah, in the last item meeting, yeah, I think we all agree on that the CDI document is relatively stable, but there's some dependency with the unified properties. So this update, we closely work with the order of the unified properties and follow its latest update. And besides it, we also made some small edits on some attribute names and meter types to make the CDI interface more adaptive. Can I go to the next slide? Yeah, so this is the first change in this version of the document. We generalize the meter types and the attribute names. Like, for example, we remove the FCI from the meter type of the new services, just call the Alto CDNI. And also make some change in the attribute names, like between the CDNI FCI results to the CDNI advertisement does and some other edit. We just want to treat the FCI as a special case and make the service more general and can adapt to some potential extensions for other CDNI services. I hope this people can happy to this change. So next page. This is the major change in this this version of the document. We clarify how to use the latest unified properties to present the CDNI information, like we're representing the footprint object as the property map entities, and we have some examples and how to use the existing entities to represent the footprints, and we also have the new entity domain types like the ASN and the country code. Other major changes like we represent the CDNI capabilities as the property map entity properties, and we mentioned that it is resource-specific entity properties. So there's a change in the latest unified properties. We need to clarify the defining information resource media type for this new property type. So that should be the application Alto CDNI. So yeah, next page. Yeah. So that's all the change in the document. I think we can move forward to the next step, follow the unified property document, the next question for the CDI.
Great. So I know this was one of the drafts that was waiting for unified properties. Now that unified properties is going through WGLC, this can follow. Any questions, comments, or concerns on the draft? All right, so hearing none, I presume that we will move it ahead. All right, so Jensen, thank you. I think you managed to get us 2 minutes back. The next is path vector.
No audio.
All right, Kai, you there?
Yep, great. Okay, so hello everyone. Today I'm going to present the progress on the path vector document. So next slide, please.
I think your voice is very faint.
Is it better now?
Slightly.
Okay. Let's try move forward, and if there's other problems, maybe we can switch to Sabine or Richard. Just
Sounds
in case.
good.
Okay, so next slide, please. So here is basically for path vector, we are mainly focusing on two problems from past reviews. So one problem is that the old write-up seem to be focused on a single use case and leaves the impression that it is only for a single usage scenario. And in the latest document, we are actually emphasizing that this extension does not only applies for the flow scheduling problem, but is a general tool for other use cases as well. And we also did a lot of text updates to clarify the abstractions and also key designs used in this document. And next slide, please. So to give a quick update of the updates in the latest revision, and in the early part of the document, we clarified the problem and the proposed solution. So a major change is that we add we conclude the general additional requirement on top of the current Alto document, and we present how the extensions fulfill these requirements. And we also, in the latest revision, we also discuss ephemeral abstract network elements and also persistent abstract network elements, which is also related to the unified property document, and we demonstrate how they can be how they should be handled. Next slide, please. And a lot of update is to synchronize path vector document with the unified property map, as there are some changes to the for example, how you define a domain and how you register the property types to the IANA registration, and a lot of updates was conducted on path vector to reflect these changes. And a major change is for abstract network elements, for the ANE domain, we are now consider the property map as the defining resource for it. And I think this design is also consistent in for both ephemeral ANEs, which is used only in the path vector response, and also for persistent ANEs. So I think the co-authors are very happy with the design. And next slide, please. And we also fixed some technical issues identified from past document. One most significant one is that the usage of the start parameter in multi-part messages is not consistent with the RFC with the multi-part RFC. So basically we fixed that problem, and also we fixed inappropriate and inconsistent letter cases. For example, some of the can and may and must are used in capital letters, which should follow the semantics of RFC 2119, and we fixed that. We basically changed them into small letters so they follow the usual semantics of English. And we also fixed the problem of some of the terms such as path vector should be used in the basically the first letter of the path vector is always capitalized throughout the paper. Yep. So next slide, please. And just to conclude, the latest revision did a lot of clarifications to make the document easier to follow, and the latest document is also fully synchronized with the latest unified property draft, so they can move ahead as a bundle. And I think after the unified property passes the working group last call, we can issue the working group last call for path vector. Okay, I think that's all.
Okay, questions? All right, so path vector was one of the main drafts when we rechartered the first time, to come out of the working group as somewhat of a different view that the original Alto provided. So this is an important draft as we close down our second charter. So if it's ready to go, then Jan and I will go ahead as Unified Properties ends its working group last call, start one for this as well.
Right, so this is Jan, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so I was going to agree. So I think we want this to move to working last call. If the authors agree, we as chair certainly agree. And we should follow it up right after Unified Properties is done, or maybe even in parallel. I don't know, BJ, we can discuss. Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
If there's no questions, then Richard, how do you want to do it? You want to present the charter discussion slides first, followed by the per minute slide? Richard? Richard, you there? We can't hear you. Anybody co-located with Richard?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
Yep.
Oh, great. So, sorry, I messed up with all the slides. Therefore, I'm still uploading. Unfortunately, I couldn't combine all the slides. I won't upload until 11. So how about I just give the overview part, and then you already have the first 11, which you can do, and then I'll continue to upload into your data tracker. Is that okay? Sorry, my machine wouldn't allow me to combine into a single file, PDF file. So therefore, I'm uploading one by one. But I already uploaded 11.
If you have uploaded 11, then I don't see.
Oh, you can use. Yeah, you can use my overview slides, which is a different deck, which I uploaded last night. I believe overview should be okay.
All right.
That one is good. I'll continue to upload the other ones, and we'll see what happens.
if it helps, you can just attach 11 of the slides to me, or tell somebody to, and I can create a unified PDF and upload it.
Sure, I can send you an email. Yeah. Okay. So let's go the way. So
I mean, while you're presenting
if this turns
while you're
out to be
presenting your
honest,
charter, while you're presenting your charter discussion slides, if somebody else has the access to the one slides, they can just email them to me.
yeah, I can send you an email right away. So give me, sorry, I completed my fault. So, and give me one. I thought it would be using my machine. Okay, so VG, let me upload all the machine to you. So therefore, you can just basically, okay, just they all have numbers.
So if this turns out to be onerous, we could just have Richard share.
Okay, done. Okay, so VG, I send you by email with all the 16 slides, and now we can start with mine.
Okay.
Okay, so can you make it full screen, please? Okay, wonderful. And thank you so much. I plan to spend around maybe 10, 12 minutes. The next slide, please. And yeah, it doesn't move. Okay, great. Yeah, it does move. So before I really, I don't want to claim major credit at all. And this really, really is a group effort, and in terms of overview slides and also organization. And here is essentially the main technical part comes from quite a few meetings, discussions, email exchanges with many contributors from very different organizations: China Mobile, Telefonica, T-Mobile, Tencent, Benetech, the Sense Project, the QZ Cloud Project, Nokia, Ericsson, and you name. So wonderful, wonderful team of people. So therefore, I think I really should give all these people credit. So I'm only a coordinator. I'm only just going over the high-level content. Next slide, please. Yeah, so basically, of course, what I should mention as well is the slides and the discussion are fresh in the sense that they all came from last like 2 or 3 weeks. So therefore, they're new. Of course, also I think really very important for me is for this group is to follow the guidance and from our AD. And here is very, very relevant and guidance from Martin, and that's a quote from his email. So I think VG also showed some guidance as well from beginning, and so that's very relevant as well. But here, essentially, I want to remind people about the key things which I think the recharter is looking for, in addition to, in some sense, also re-emphasize what VG has already shown. Number one should be relevance, should be a real problem, and people are willing to implement and deploy. In particular, I guess deployment is very important. And we should really work more with people to review the document. And also for the recharter, I think very important is this is not a research. I guess some people are focusing to be more on research, and the problem should be really somehow reasonable, solvable already, and should be relatively well understood. I think those are the important part. And also, I think VG, Yang, and also mentioned at the beginning, the goal for today and is not really have the text of the recharter or decision, and just at best is some kind of broad consensus on the kind of problem to work on, and then we can work on the exact text. And at the very least, we'll see today, or maybe in the next few days as well, what kind of possibilities we have. Next, please. Next slide. Oh, okay. And to really set the stage for discussion, and I really want to emphasize, and today maybe some people actually disagree, and in some sense, and even yesterday, I think just like a couple of days ago, Friday, we had some very interesting discussions with people about the recharter and what is essentially is the scope and of the Alto work. And I believe probably that's still correct. And also high-level goals is to provide network information that an application may not easily get by itself. And provide action, that's number one. So basically, if the information application can get it easily, you don't need a standard, that's probably out of scope. And also provide abstractions to simplify complex networking information internals, and make it as simple as possible, but not simpler. And of course, even some information you might be able to get, but you want somehow simplification, maybe networking auto server is a good way to do a proxy and to do transformation and so on. But overall, it's typically somehow focusing slightly one way from network to application. And why I want to mention this one would be, you might see discussions about the bigger context. That the bigger context about Alto is network application integration co-design. And I'm co-chairing a SIGCOMM, a network application integration co-design workshop, and it's going to be held on April 14th. From there, you can see actually there are both directions. And information, essentially what we call AAN and NNA, basic network aware applications and application aware networking, so therefore can get quite comprehensive. But here slightly we're still focusing on essentially providing information to build better network aware applications. But we'll see. Next slide, please. Just set the stage. Okay, I will do a very quick review for people who are new and or who need some like a refresh about what Alto really is. And next slide, please. And so basically, this is a set of Alto RFC's working group documents and drafts. And total, if you count the left most column, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 RFCs. And 2 in the middle, SSC cost calendar already in RFC queue, and mostly already done, and we are waiting for them to finalize. And we have 4 items which we're trying to finish. And then there are quite a few other essential documents. For example, I think there are like 3 documents on MEC, and 5 or 6 on cellular mobile networks, and quite a few on aggregations, proxies, and quite a few on update Alto drafts. If you're interested in seeing this complete list, there's this Google Doc which we maintain. There are quite a lot of essentially dangling work from Alto working group which have not been finished, and they are essentially in a stage to wait for the current charter items to be finished. Next slide, please. So here is a list of some current active ones. There are quite a few actually also not really active now, and they expired, but they're still over there. And some people probably even will talk about them today, but they were not really reactivated because they were waiting for discussion to see what direction, and people start to really reactive and resubmit and refresh essentially all these documents. Next slide, please. Okay, so very quickly, let's summarize what the Alto protocol framework is, because recharter should be, on one hand, it could be as aggressive as, from HTTP to HTTP 2 or 3, and you can make some major changes. But the potential possible you always want to, the recharter discussion is you should build a work on top of existing work. And essentially, Alto has 2 things to offer. One is a protocol framework, and one is the abstraction. Essentially, is the content with the carrier. And here, essentially, the carrier, which is protocol framework. So basically, what Alto does is, for people refresh memory of people new, and you divide information into information resources to do modular design. And each module can have media types to allow flexibility. Of course, that's also be debatable. People say, no, you should have only single JSON type. Or people, Alto decision was, okay, multiple types to be allowed in the independent modular evolution, somehow philosophical, but that's current design anyway. And then different information resources can have dependencies, and Alto introduce a mechanism to enforce some kind of consistency. And all the information resources, we don't enforce universal information availability. So therefore, the particular server or network would have information resource directory and to be offered. And that directory and all the resources would be bootstrapped by the server, found out by server service or server discovery from 7 to 86 and RFC 86, and they're very well written and so on, and therefore bootstrap the whole system. And each individual information resource currently is provided as a RESTful service. We have a very simple grammar, and to specify those services, we're not going to young model and so on, but we do have a grammar, so therefore that's part of the framework as well. And then on top, we allow people to do whatever information resources you have. And we to go from not only RESTful service, we can do essentially push updates and streaming control and increment updates, and you can do all this essentially streaming control. Actually, getting closer, if you make an analogy from HTTP to HTTP 2, but in a different, very specific context. Next slide, please. So basically, here is the modules where I just list over here. We can just, for people who want a picture, those are essentially components which we have built already. Next slide, please. So, and the other function, not only the transport framework for people to design things, but reusability and skeleton framework for people to do software engineering and understand. And second one, of course, is we should provide abstractions. And Alto already has provided quite a few abstractions. Of course, those abstractions are provided to be as simple, as clean as possible, because essentially it wants to be universal in the early versions at least. So basically, in Alto, you have entities. A network consists of a set of entities, and an entity can be endpoint, can be aggregation of endpoints, and can be abstract network elements. And each entity can have a set of properties and so on. And then, of course, and not only entity, which you can think about as nodes, you also have paths to link and entities, in particular network nodes. And essentially, path is a traversal path from source to destination entity. And path would have properties called cost metrics, and we have quite a few extensions about different types of essentially path properties, perform metrics, which is covered today, multicast, multi-cost, and cost calendar, and so on, basically to annotate the properties of essentially a path or virtual link in this abstraction, and so on. And then, of course, we can also have code flow, and that's really like an abstract view or path vector, which we're finalizing soon as well. And then, of course, one more thing is we think not only network should have a basic entities, should also have functions. So therefore, the abstraction is called essential footprint. And of course, it's specialized in CDN context, basically. And you have footprints, entities, and you have capabilities, and you link essentially them together with FCI capabilities and so on. And of course, properties can be inherited and information can be filtered. So those are, you can think about abstractions, or you can think about as essentially a framework. Next slide, please. So we can skip this one. So basically the same thing. And you can basically, for people who want a picture, doesn't like words, that's essentially what really somehow the picture is. You have essentially nodes. Nodes can be grouped, and between nodes, and you can have a path, and you can have a set of passes to form a call flow in path vector and so on. So that's some way to look at abstractions. Most basic abstractions introduced by Alto so far. Next slide, please. Okay. And for Alto now, and I do want to emphasize, and probably that's one of the most interesting experience or humbling as well as learning experience is, it takes time. And I think if we are able to recharge or we can recharge, I think we learn a lot. Hopefully we can do things faster and so on. But given that one of the most important condition is deployment relevance, and here actually is one very interesting figure, not from me. This is a paper called Steering Hypergiant Traffic at Scale. And this paper from Benox, by Ingma and other people from Benox and Deutsche Telekom and so on. And they won the Connex 2019 Best Paper Award. They also, I think, Ingma won this IETF Applied Networking Research Prize. And it talks a lot about how they deploy essentially a big part of Alto. And for people who want to track this one, and humbling that, you look at Alto problems, that figure is figure 13 from that paper. And people started in 2008, and Alto's statement is 2009. And then I think Alto protocol was 13, and then now we're doing all these essential extensions. And if you look at them, and I believe their first deployment going live is somewhere, you can see a lot of effort, BGP listener, IDP listener, and integration tasks, and connect IGP and so on. I think they really go full live in terms of getting directly 2017, which is about 3 years ago, but still, if you look at from Alto, it takes 4 years. So really takes time, and I think we should learn from it. And as well, we should, of course, by the way, I think this is very large scale and for Benox. So, and I think that's one big thing. We probably should learn, even here, look at over here, and BGP listener, IDP, and so on. I think those work we probably should, recharge should handle if we recharge. Next slide, please. So basically, I think here is really, I want to really remind people when we talk about recharger is, I think that's one thing I learned in graduate school, was something that looks always very simple on the surface and eventually can get quite complex. And here is somehow a little bit like an internal structure of essentially the flow director and build on top of doing all the directions based on Alto and so on. You can see there are a lot of complexity. Look at listeners, all kind of listeners, all kind of processing, pass cache, and so on, and quite complex. I think given that now we have the protocol, we have the real deployment, large-scale deployment, and I believe potentially maybe it is time to really open the complexity. Of course, we can discuss about that. And so far, Alto tends to be really make abstraction as simple as possible. Of course, underlying layer oftentimes can be complex. Is really ready or not for us to make it fully complex or not? We'll see. Next slide, please. So this is a real system. Okay, so recharter, and let's go over very quickly. And next slide, please. So we talk about essentially three things. I think so basically, and if we understand one thing to really make it relevant and to solve a real problem, and here is really guiding principle. Let me just see here very quickly. We feel very strongly that really the most essential part for recharter for relevance, review, quality, and feasibility is collaboration somehow. That's probably really essential. And collaboration with industry collaborators, for example, network operators and vendors, application providers, and so on. And we really should collaborate within IETF and IRTF, like NMRG, PANRG, and so on. We talk about sending, if there's an interest, and if we, after discussion today, there's a strong interest in recharter, maybe we should get started to send emails, get more people from NMRG and PANRG engaged, and so on. We should also engage broadly with other SDOs, for example, SC, ZSM, 3GPP, and Sense, and GNG working group, and so on. And they can really drive a lot of to make it relevant, because they essentially they also have the relevance as a part of the mandate as well, and industry can give us real feedback. For example, look at all these real cases from the Conex paper. Of course, for recharter, we probably can have debate about new ideas, so therefore we should also work with academia. For example, I'm going to really make this one a big discussion in the SIGCOMM August 14th, because I'm one of the co-chairs. I'm also going to be the co-chair of SOSR, which is one of the major conferences in SDN. So I'm also going to make this one, the integration, a big part of that conference, and next year, 2021. So we want to have all the kind of collaborations. Next slide, please. I'm almost done. Okay, and of course, let me skip over. Just quickly, basically here list the people we already have collaboration: the network providers, China Mobile, Telefonica, T-Mobile, and applications, Banox, Tencent, and Sense Project, and QZ Cloud Project, and vendors, Nokia, Ericsson, and academia, and so on. So I think, but we want to work with more people in terms of collaboration. Here's just some concrete example about industry collaborators or broad collaboration. Next slide, please. I think I will set a tone and we'll switch to the interviews. Okay, technical discussions. And the next slide. Oops. For the technical discussion, basically that's really guidance from BG. I don't need to repeat. And given the BG Yang already mentioned, it's 1 minute slides, therefore that's easy. Next slide. And next one basically is what we want the recharter if possible. And for the discussion is we want to be use case driven. Because that's probably, given that the most important thing is relevance and real problems, and use case probably is the best way to do that. And there are essentially, we identify 4 use cases: cellular, MEC, mobile edge computing, huge data, automation, interdomain, auto extension, and so on. And we also, if possible, make the recharter to be organized, not like a random. And therefore, we identify the following structure for people to get some sense about what's going on. So the structure will be auto client, server, and multiple servers, and networking substrate. And we name the server to client 2 components. One is abstraction/services, and one is transport. Abstraction services are the content. Transport is the way the content is being provided. And then we should also really look into, for example, look at a lot of complexities, all these interop issues, and so on. Look at the example we show, and we should look at the back end and infrastructure and automation. That's the sourcebound. And then, of course, there's a big part about auto server to auto server communication. That's east-west interface, server to server. We should also take a look over there. Next slide, please. So that's essentially the mental structure. And so here is the way we organize things. And that's how we really decide to go with all these like one-slide presentation is you look at the number of rows. We have a MOVI, which is cellular network, MEC, and huge data, automation, interdomain, and auto extension as use cases and concrete real issues. And the top columns are 4 columns essential about house structures. And then we organize the slides essentially once the presentation in this way. Next slide, please. So essentially, they all this in this way. So we want to get the word touching. So here is a list of the, I believe, a total 16 presentations. And here's mostly, I think here are the 5. They're from China Mobile presented, Tencent, and so on. So basically, mostly about the services we want to provide and so on. Okay, next slide, please. So here, get people represent so people don't get lost. And here is also a lot of basically abstractions, services what we want to provide and so on. Next slide, please. And here is as well, and then we'll also include, for example, the transport, which we're discussing, and the source bound and automation, which are very important, which is very important as well. So therefore, they are included in this way. Okay, I think I'm all done. And Vijay, I think I sent you all the slides, and basically every slide has a number 1, 2, 3, 4. They are essential in this order. You can go them one by one.
Right. So I created a unified PDF. And as soon as this reloads, it should be there.
Okay.
Yeah, while Vijay is doing that, I just want to remind everybody that we now have 30 minutes left. So if you can really stick to the 1 minute, even maybe shorter if possible, that gives us still 15 minutes for discussion. And I would really have that, right?
Right.
So I don't have memory to associate the slide with the person. So as the slide moved through, I've put them in the order that Richard indicated by the name of the slide, which had 1, 2, 3 in it. So as the slides move through, please come up to the mic and start speaking.
I think number one. I think number 1 actually is Mowi. It's not this one actually. I think all the file name has a 1, 2, 3 all the way to. I think yeah, maybe I messed up.
I basically took all the names of the files that had 1, 2, 3 as you had indicated and put them in order.
Then why don't we just go?
Hold on 1 second.
I think we should just go in the order they are not right now on Vijay's screen, because we don't have so much time, guys.
Yeah, let's go there. Yes.
Right, and please 1 minute at most, because if you do 80 seconds per slide, we don't have any discussion time left, right?
Sorry.
So
actually, hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. It was my. Give me just 1 second.
Sure.
Okay, I'm just reloading a new set.
Wonderful. Sorry about that. I'm not proficient in PDF manipulation.
Okay, is this better? Okay. Can you folks hear me?
Yeah.
This is the movie slide, so please continue.
Frank from China Mobile.
John, can you keep a track of the time, please? Go ahead.
Frank, you can speak. I think it's showing your slides.
Prove him in the queue.
He's in the queue, but somehow he's not speaking. I'm not familiar. Oh, now I think it looks right now. Frank, can you talk?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Frank Li Gang from China Mobile. I'm very it's my honor to talk here. This slide is about movie information exposure and benefits and proposal. Regarding the problem description benefits, I think the sender network indeed are getting much better, but the network variations and fluctuations are much larger. Let me take 4G network as an example. The 4G network only several million bits per second, the variation, but for the 5G network, even the gig bits per second, the variation is much larger. On the other hand, the application far more adaptive. For example, the adaptive bit rates mechanism is widely used for streaming applications. The problem is that if the application didn't react to the network fluctuation very well, the queuing delay would become much larger, which obviously is unacceptable, especially for cloud interactive applications. We have conducted several live network trials, and it is proved that it is beneficial to expose refined granularity of cellular informations. And such kind of information can be carried wire inbound or outbound for application usage. Currently, the solution is proprietary and not standardized. We hope IETF can address this issue and come up with a standardized solution. The following cellular information can be considered. For example, the UE level information.
We have to really stick by the minute. We are at a minute and a half.
Okay, I'll be quick. Okay, I'll be quick. The UE level information and cell slice level information can be considered. We have 3 use cases to prove the benefits of cellular information exposure. The first use case is adaptive bit rate for cloud gaming, and we use channel status information to derive the predictive bandwidth for the adaptive bit rates. As a result, the lagging ratio is significantly reduced from 63% to 19%. And the use case 2 is video QE quality of experience prediction. So we also use the radio channel setters and some user plane measurement metrics to do the prediction. And we also use a machine learning model to do the prediction. And the accuracy is quite positive, and it's up to 90% off. The third use case is about the TCP performance optimization, where you utilize the wearable UE radio bandwidth and from base station and buffer size, such kind of information to adjust the TCP sending window, and the throughput is significantly improved by 30% off. So the proposal is that we expect to extend the Alto to provide a single framework to support the cellular information exposure. Okay, that's all. Thanks.
All right. For folks coming up, I understand that social norms dictate introduction and stuff, but please feel free to skip that and just go into your problem description and what you're proposing, and please try to keep that to a minute, please.
Okay, thanks.
I think that's Barney.
Barney?
Asking to send audio. Do I need to move somewhere?
I saw she's trying to join, speak, and then disappear. The system somehow.
Well, the system shows me Fanny Boten asked to send audio. It looks like I need to approve somewhere, but I don't know where.
Yeah. Oh no, I can see she's ready and then disappear. Ready, disappear.
Louis, can you go next?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Please go next.
Can you move this one? Okay, thank you. So this very quick. So basically, today there are multiple computing capabilities being deployed in operators network, and this is the aim of these computing capabilities is to be used by different applications, right? So the problem is to identify what would be the proper edge for each application, because we need to differentiate the physical edge, which would be probably the closer to the user, from the service edge, which would be the one with enough capabilities in terms of latency, bandwidth, and so to satisfy the service. That could be not necessarily the one at the very physical edge, right? So basically here, the point would be to use Alto in order to identify what would be the proper service edge. So taking into account these considerations, latency, bandwidth, and so on and so forth, and also mixing this with the network information that nowadays Alto provides. So there you can see basically an example of what could be a way of requesting this with the bundles that are typically used by hyperscalers, or even this CNTT initiative from GSMA and Linux Foundation. So basically the idea for rechartering would be to allow clients, that would be the applications mostly, to request edge information, and for Alto to be able to handle and combine service edge information plus network information. That's all.
Excellent.
Thank you. Exactly 1 minute, 10 seconds. Great. Next.
All right, Barney, I'm going to go back. If you can speak, please do. Otherwise, we'll move ahead.
Yeah, no, I think it's not working for him. Go to the next one, Vijay.
Yeah, so let's move on. Okay, who's Richard? Okay. Can you recognize this?
Yeah, and this actually is from QZ Cloud, and I can see for them. I think they're having a difficulty connecting and joining today. So basically, what they're proposing is to do. There's a draft, and I think they should put a link over there. They have a draft. And the basic idea is, and they want to deploy, of course, not only raw resources, but they also want to deploy functions and for modern applications. For example, for this particular network, they're deploying about a few thousand of services all across China already. Is in the trial phase. And so give an example of function which they deploy would be, for example, face recognition. If you think that's evil, you think about, for example, maybe like a flooding recognition and the dog recognition, and so basically you want to deploy all the services in the network. And these functions will be delivered and run on mobile edge clouds. And so therefore, basically how to deploy this. And they feel that Alto protocol can provide global information and capabilities for this architecture. And the proposal for them really is to do this. And the basic proposal is already CDNI seems to be a very good starting point because it provides footprints, but only for very specific CDN capabilities. And here the proposal is, can it really be extended to include footprints and capabilities and so on for generic functions? I think we're talking about probably a few thousand functions. And and of course, if successful, they want to deploy as part of QZ Cloud, which is very large network they're trying.
Great. Next one.
So this is.
Next one is Harvey Newman. I saw Harvey, but actually now he disappeared. I don't know why. If you don't mind, I can speak for him. Oh, I don't know if Harvey is online or Ching or. Okay, probably we spend more time looking for it. Why don't I just speak on their behalf very quickly? So basically, Harvey and Newman, this essentially is a project called Sense project, which is a DOE project, and it's building a smart network to accelerate scientific discovery. So you can CERN and all this stuff is, for example, LHC and all the very large scientific project. And the Sense project is intent-based architecture, small complex workflows. And for this, really do this essential intended workflow, and what they want is to have standardization, because essentially you want to orchestrate all these different networks, because oftentimes they're international networks. And therefore, basically, what they want is, they feel that Alto is good match, a resource model, but somehow they do see, I think if we see over here, we do see their existing services need two extensions. One is building on existing Alto models to define flexible resource models. And for example, they give two very concrete examples, and one is called a time block maximum bandwidth, one is called bandwidth sliding window, one time bandwidth product, and those are very basic services, but you can use Alto as a base, but you cannot provide it. So they want to add this kind of new services, APIs on top of Alto. And on top of it, if possible, they want to define the interaction model standard or informational to between the model and as well as lifecycle management. And right-hand side is some very quick initial design. So basically, you model resources as time series, and you introduce a language. And language, here example for these 3 types of resources. You can write the generic object framework, do all these queries, and so on. And so basically, that's it. And of course, here the really discussion part is also. Maybe Harvey can join later. I think he disappeared from link, and we'll talk potentially not only Oh, I'm done.
Okay, BJ, can you go back to the slide Fanny was to present? Maybe Lyle can give it a try. That one, yes. Lyle, are you there?
Hello.
Hello, that works. Go ahead.
Excellent. All right, yeah, so this is the Etsy ZSM use case. So just going through quickly, right, Etsy is a framework that enables automation of day 2 network operations for 5G and beyond with minimum zero touch, hence the ZSM name. So in this use case, we're looking at a domain watching or managing performance of an end-to-end voice over NR service. For example, the way it works today is ZSM reacts to a network anomaly when the threshold's exceeded. But after going through the stages within the closed loop, it determines the resolution to be rerouted in the signal. So what we think is we can use something like Alto server with path vector mechanism to kind of help us out proactively. And we believe it'll increase the increment, proactively, we can use the SSE updates as well. And the Alto servers can help with the updated path on the ZSM. We also believe we can support intent-based with Alto, with ZSM also communicating with Alto bidirectionally to give more optimized routes. I'll just kind of skip ahead. Lastly, collaboration with Etsy ZSM is probably a great idea. So if we can send a liaison statement between Etsy ZSM to introduce Alto and how ZSM could leverage Alto in its architecture.
Excellent. 59 seconds. Awesome.
I try.
Okay, this is me again. So this is very intuitive. So basically today, Alto is providing a number of abstractions as were mentioned before by Richard. So here this proposal will go in the same direction, but basically working with BGP communities. BGP communities is a very well-known way for operators to manage somehow a different set of preferences and for applying policies, for instance. So proposal would be to extend Alto in order to process community information coming from BGP. So that this is not done today. So we'll be to incorporate this to Alto. And also Alto to provide network and cost maps based on communities. So basically the idea later on will be to integrate this easily with the policies that operators that we apply into the network. So that's all.
Great, thank you. That was on time. We can do 1 or 2 more.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So basic on the guidance for potential items to be considered in the chartering, we have the relevance, and of course the multi-domain is a relevant problem. We have many novel use cases where the traffic traverses multiple domains. Regarding the problem stemming and solution, one very important starting point could be to look up every single Alto service to making multi-domain. For example, the aggregator is a single aggregator would be able to represent the network of the domains, different domains, and each domain may have its internal Alto server. The aggregator could be queried to get, for example, the network map and cost map. In case of the cost map, could be used to discover the paths or paths partitioned in domain segments, or we can use the cost map to determine an Alto server for each network domain and determine end-to-end cost as the sum of costs in each domain segment. And obviously, the part of the end-to-end cost is more tricky because we can use a unified representation, but would be used for universal units. But in case of not universal unit, we can try to use other representations such as vector representation. And regarding the standard direction, we have different personal draft regarding the motivating use case and design requirements, and other related to looking for Alto extension to address the discovery mechanism and the aggregation mechanisms. That's all.
Okay, great. Vijay, I would suggest we would stop here. I'm sorry for everybody who prepared the other slides, but I really would like to have 10 minutes for discussion.
Oh.
Right? Vijay, you agree?
Yes, I'm just going to flip through the slides so that people can just take a look at the headings.
Oh, good idea. Yeah, just go through.
So we have TCP related, flow base, network information. This ties into path vector, it seems to me. And I'm not sure what this slide is in reference to, what it's trying to do.
It's called context by Sabine.
Okay. And generic query language. This is interesting, a generic query language extension for Alto. All right.
Right. So in summary, I think we saw many. Sorry, I think in summary we saw many important, I guess the most important ones, and I think the other ones are still there for everybody to look at. Like you said, Vijay, this recharter discussion is, we're not going to finish it today. So these slides have not been produced in vain. Everybody can have a look at them online, right?
Yeah. Can I just go very quickly, like maybe 10 seconds for each one, so we can read out the title, people get a sense about the scope, and we only have like 5 left. Takes like 1 or 2 minutes. Is that okay? Very quickly.
I'm not sure because
I see.
Vijay, what do you say?
I think we have a sense, Richard, of the stuff, at least at a very high level. My thing would be to let's use the next 9 minutes to try to, come together to know if there's enough people to do the work, if there's enough stuff we can carve up, and so on.
Right. Can I just show 2 very quickly? Can you go to the inbound, outbound, and also Lyle's aggregation? I think those 2 actually are new. They are not shown here yet, so therefore actually important because they are not represented. Some other ones are redundant. In some work can be skipped. Skip.
Go down.
Yeah, go down. Yeah, go down. Go down. And go down. And go down.
This is the last.
Oh.
These are the 11 slides.
Oh, I have a total of 16. I sent you only 11?
Yeah.
Please admit some of the people from the queue. We're time's wasting.
Yeah, I have a total of 16. So I do want, okay, but probably, is that okay for both Lyle and Chunshen? Just maybe give a 30 seconds very quickly, because I think these 2 represent 2 very important directions for Alto. One is automation, which Lyle, and one is transport for Tencent, which I think is very, very important. Is that okay? I'm sorry I'm pushing for this, but I think they really represent very important directions for Alto. Lyle, can you say very quickly about your aggregation, and then Chunshen probably very quickly what you're doing, maybe 30 seconds. I'm really sorry about that. My mistake. Oh, maybe.
Admit button if they want to admit somebody from the queue, or they can't talk until you admit them.
Oh.
I've been doing this up to now, but chairs, I need you to press either the green button or the green microphone button in the queue on the left side of the Meet Echo board. Do you not see that?
That's fine.
The green microphone button.
On the, are you looking at the queue, the participants list? On the left.
Yes.
Okay, so you should see Lyle and Chunxiang in the queue?
Yes.
Okay, so you need to press the green check mark to admit them so they can speak. I've been doing that up to now, but there you go. Okay.
Hey, I'll just go quickly. The slide we had is actually an old ID on Alto aggregation. Actually, rather than going over that, what I wanted to just say in general is it's clear that there's quite a few ideas being submitted. And it's also clear, right, that they're outside of the existing charter. I think between that and the liaison work with the ETSI ZSM and some of the newer pushes on programmability and APIs in the wireless cores in 5G, that we should go ahead with the recharter.
Hello?
Okay.
This turns out we have a paper, but it's missing from this very short description. Now, Tencent is a service provider. We have a lot of cloud gaming service, and we during this stage, a lot of cloud-based applications are used by lots of people staying at home, and we found that in the cloud gaming is very sensitive to the delay and the bandwidth. So for this kind of application, we needed to very quickly detect the network status, and that's based on the status change the bit rate and the content coding. So in such case, we think out-of-band information query is not suitable for this cloud gaming and cloud-based application. So we think in-band information is very helpful to provide the good quality of user service. We have to do the real-time testing in China Mobile real-time network, and it can provide a very good result. And also in the 3P 5G standards, there's MMEC. They have also provided a similar solution to be standard within 1 year. That's all.
Okay, guys, we have 3.5 more minutes, then the meeting will end. I think Meet Echo might even kick us out. So actually, Vijay, you put up these interesting questions that we need to discuss. I don't think we have time for that anymore. Maybe you can quickly put up those questions. Yeah, Vijay is going to put up the questions that normally you need to discuss when you want to recharter. Personally, I want to reiterate what I said in the beginning. I think we see a lot of, yeah, thank you. I think we see a lot of use cases and a lot of energy, which I think is very good. So I think a lot of people have interest in rechartering Alto. Again, a while ago, some time ago, I wasn't so sure about enough energy, but I think that's clearly the case. We have enough energy. We have interesting use cases from the industry. So I personally think rechartering is quite possible and would be very useful. Now, how are we going to go about it? I think we're not going to have enough time for discussing it yet here in this meeting, unfortunately. I guess, Vijay, the best option would be to discuss these questions on the mailing list and maybe have a virtual interim before the next IETF meeting to make progress.
Probably. I think we should open up the floor to anybody if they want to say anything else. Maybe perhaps, you know, this discussion out of necessity was focused also on the existing work items. If we have a discussion, if we have a meeting next time, maybe that can be a purely recharter discussion. Hello?
Yes.
So I what I'm saying is that if anybody has any opinions to express, I think, you know, if please come to the mic, but probably the next IETF that we meet at, it should be a purely only recharter discussion.
Right, and I actually would prefer the next full IETF meeting we have already rechartered. That's why I'm proposing an interim to speed up the rechartering. But that's okay. We can take that offline.
So I think there's some signals that would be useful here. If there's a strong consensus that one or two of these things are really, really critical for us to move forward, then that would be quite great. Another alternative, also, if there's some sort of unifying theme that people can coalesce around out of all the themes that sort of Richard proposed, that would be great as well. But we need to start creating some sort of framework for a charter. So I think discussion on the list before we have a meeting, because we need to get some sense of where people are gravitating. If we can't coalesce on, 3 or 4 drafts, then that's a problem. Now, we could have essentially an Alto maintenance working group where they're just 4 unrelated things they're working on. I keep using the number 4, but something in that neighborhood. We certainly can't take 16 drafts as milestones. So there needs to be some sort of down select here, and we're looking for a signal from the community there. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree with that. You're basically saying that right now there might even be too much energy, and that energy needs to be confined to a dedicated effort. I agree.
Right. So I don't know. Can I speak? I don't know what's the protocol. I'm still confused.
No, we have open discussion right now. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I don't know how to either raise my hand and so on. Okay. I think actually idea of intermeeting might make sense, right? And either discussing in the mailings. I do say, I totally agree. And 16 documents and 16 directions will be too much, too many. And we probably need to narrow down to a few, probably 4 or 5. Is that right? So Martin and LVG, typical, how many people narrow down? I think typical, my understanding would be like 4 or 5, maybe looks like the right size work, right? So basically, I think my understanding is, let's say if there's a way we can agree on 4 or 5 items, which there's some kind of strong consensus, and therefore we should all work together. Of course, each one would be relevant and with expertise and so on. Is that right? Is that really the way I take away the right thing? And we can recharter into a meeting, or I don't know what's the other format. But that's the main message I take away.
Yes, yeah. I agree with that. I mean, that is ideally they're like thematically combined in one of the kind of the buckets that you propose. But if it really has to be 4 things that are not related to each other, that's tolerable, but less preferred.
Okay, gotcha. I think Andrew Bondi wants to speak. Is that right? On the queue.
Either click on he needs to click on one of the microphone icons, not the monitor icon.
Let me know.
Great.
I think Luis wants to speak, but
yeah, unfortunately, I don't know how to approve that. I don't.
Oh, Luis can speak.
I've allowed Luis to speak. Not a problem.
Thank you. No, just to mention, I'm also in favor of this interim meeting in order to not take so long till the point of deciding what could be those future lines of work. So I agree that this could help us to speed up, let's say, all the researching process, but also to have a clear, let's say, horizon of what we could do here. So I would be in favor of that interim meeting as well.
Okay, so do I understand that, I'm sorry, there was some people working out in the yard. Do I understand that there's some need for an interim meeting to try to tie down maybe 3 or 4 deliverables tied to the new charter?
Well, let me phrase it this way. We can also have this discussion on the mailing list. Let's try to have this discussion on the mailing list if we can make progress there. I'm not pushing for an interim, but what I would want to avoid is to wait to the next IETF meeting and have there another Alto session just on rechartering, because then we might have again lots of presentations and that's going to take on forever. Right? So
yeah, no,
either way, I would like to have the rechartering. If there's going to be rechartering, I would like to see it done before the next IETF meeting. Ideally, we can make this progress on the mailing list. And I think Richard made some good comments, just narrow, and there was some good advice from Martin, just narrow down the many directions we have right now to 4 or 5 core work items, make a clear proposal, and then we can go from there. And I think this needs to happen on the mailing list first. And if there is a need for further discussion, I was just bringing up the idea of a virtual interim. I'm not pushing for it.
Okay. Yeah, I think that sounds reasonable. If we can figure out on the mailing list, maybe 3, 4, 5 deliverables or so that we could go into the next charter, we can do some discussion there before, getting a slot for the next IETF.
Sounds great. So basically, we discussed, Paulton agree on between 3 to 5. That's magic number, right? And small enough to manage. Okay, I think we can. I'll be more than happy to start some generic discussions, and of course, I think all these active people, we can all do.
Yeah, I mean, my sense is that the goals have to be reasonably achievable. So obviously, if we have 10 or 12 deliverables, then that'll take some time. So let's try to focus on what's most important. And we can do that on the mailing list, or you could do it on your site list as you've been doing, but just circle back and close the loop by posting it on the mailing list.
Great.
Right. So I think this was useful because we gave some concrete advice to the people that have the weekly meetings and that are pushing for recharter, what they need to work on. Basically, narrow it down to several achievable work items. That's a good way to phrase it. Yes.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I mean, yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, I saw these comments as well. Wonderful. That's very clear. Thank you so much, everyone.
But I want to reiterate. I mean, now it may seem now that you had so many ideas. I think it was good to show all these ideas you have in mind, to show that there's a lot of energy. So I think it was very useful to show many different points of views, many different viewpoints for use cases and stuff. But for rechartering, it's probably too much. Yeah, we need to narrow it down. Absolutely. But that's a not unusual process, right? You always have a lot of energy in the beginning, and then for a charter, you need to focus on key work items.
Great. So sorry, one last comment would be, I think I'll work with Beiji, make sure we have all the 16 one sliders, and we'll make sure upload everything so people can take a look as well. And we can
of course, that's a good idea. Yes.
Richard.
Okay.
Richard.
Go ahead. Yeah, here.
Yeah, I uploaded all 16 because initially I just got all of the ones that you had uploaded to Data Tracker, but those were only 11. But in the private email you sent to me, there were 16. So now I've uploaded all of the 16.
Wonderful. You are a pro. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you very much. I think we need to close. We're 10 minutes, or no, we're 8 minutes over, but yeah.
Thank you all, and see you on the mailing list.
Exactly.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Martin, Jan, is there a way to shut the meeting down, or just leaving will do it?
Good question. Yeah.
I think please.
There's terminate session. I can terminate the session. Do you want me to do it now?
Yeah, if you know where to terminate.
I found a button that says terminate session. It sounds like the one we're looking for. Okay, guys, I'm terminating it now. After I'm terminating it, I cannot talk to you anymore. So, okay, Vijay, we can discuss offline, either via email or how we move forward. But I think it was a good meeting.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.